I think that we as a human society can agree on one thing. Music is legendary. Whether it's playing or listening to it, there just is something about listening to other people's tastes in music like it's a goddamn language. But a certain type of music that gets kinda looked down upon is music in video games, and more specifically rhythm games, where you, the player, is playing the music either to the rhythm of the track or as a part of a minigame. And even though there are quite a few rhythm-centered games out there on the internet, they aren't looked at the same way as more popular gaming genres are. Like first-person shooters, 2D platformers, 3D platformers, beat 'em up and many more. So let me introduce you to the best rhythm game ever made, Super Crazy Rhythm Castle. Now already at a first glance, this game just looks very unique and not like most of your other popular rhythm games. You literally start in an alternate dimension. I mean, how cool is that? This is also the place where you get your obligatory tutorial to show you a couple of the many unique mechanics this game has, other than just typing the keys on your keyboard in conjunction with the music. One of the first things to surprise me while playing Super Rhythm Castle is the great fusion of 2D and 3D level design, movement, interactable objects and models. Now, one complaint I had from the beginning and still kind of have is the weird movement. It's best shown at the start of the game, where you can almost see but certainly feel that you don't have the ability to move in all directions. Because when you run you get pushed down a bit, which to me just feels weird. Luckily you don't really notice the movement throughout the rest of the game, but it took me a bit of getting used to, and it will certainly be the reason that some players won't play this game, because this isn't your typical sliding and sprinting first-person shooter. This is boring, paced running until you upgrade it later in the game, like a Metroid game. So before I start rambling about the rhythm aspect of this game and why I think Super Crazy Rhythm Castle nails the rhythm game genre right in the head, I want to mention the... With that out of the way, let's talk about gameplay, and there is quite a bit to cover, so let's start with the common one of the bunch, the note pressing. This main mechanic is done perfectly. The notes are in perfect sync with the music. You can choose your own keybinds, thank God, because I'm not playing with F, V, left, up. Like, imagine playing a rhythm game with these cramped together keybinds. It's sometimes a bit annoying to undock your playing cage, but this is also a keybind that you can change in the settings, so I can't really complain about it. I also appreciate the fact that you have the ability to change the difficulty from regular to pro, where you as a pro player get a whole extra row of notes, and to me pro is the difficulty I would recommend you playing, because it just feels better to type with an even amount of fingers, which is also the reason you have 10 and not 9 fingers. To move from one mechanic to the next, I present to you chores. Actual collecting chores. But luckily they have enough variety to serve as minor obstacles and not Assassin's Creed Valhalla treasures. If you know, you know. Most of the time when there are obstacles or items that you either have to pick up or avoid, the game makes sure that collecting or avoiding these obstacles doesn't become the main focus of that specific level. And yes, this game uses levels and hubs as its main way of story progression, but it's not very linear unlike most other Metroid games, which leads me into the reason I keep comparing Super Crazy Rhythm Castle to Metroid, which is because of the upgrades that you get throughout the game, which now that I think about it are collected in a predetermined linear path, so that kind of ruined my comparison. But the two games are still alike with their upgrade mechanic. Still, almost every single level in Super Rhythm Castle is different, aside from a few reused ones. That makes 22 unique levels, which can easily give you a good 3 to 4 hours of changing gameplay. To quickly run through most of the different objectives you can find in each level, you have collecting based objectives, where you just need a certain amount of something. You have charging levels, where you have to play well in order to charge your weapon or interdimensional portal to make a bagpipe. This game is weird, alright. Escape rooms, where you have to use your brain along with the items you are presented with in order to escape or destroy stuff. There's an eating contest for all of your mukbang stands out there. And then there's also just a lot of variety when it comes to the note typing aspect of this game. There's one level where you have to avoid the bombed notes and only press the safe notes in order to not fail. Sometimes you'll have to play in a moving or turning or spinning board, and the spinning board mechanic is downright evil. Because the board won't just spin like 180 degrees. It will keep on spinning around and around in a 360-degree circle like it's a malfunctioning carousel. This is also my least favorite game mechanic in the entire game. It just sucks and you have to beat a harder version of it in order to get everything in the game. Oh, and there are also boss fights in this game. One for each world except for the cell tower, because we have this guy who becomes your ally for like one level and then he dips, never to return. And these aren't your normal Soulsborne boss fights. We have a habanero named Habanero, a Minecraft anvil, a set of hands, the final boss, and a DJ eggplant. Like, what is this? Who is the person that came up with these ideas? It's the same story for the playable characters. You can play as a jukebox, a bird, a blind man, a dragon, a hybrid thing. Not to mention all of the unlockable characters you can get by completing everything in the game. But I will get back to the different playable characters later in the video when I talk about all of the sidekicks you meet throughout the game. I think that this is a good time to talk about the music, and then as I'm going through them I will talk about a couple of things here and there when they fit in. So the first area is all about meeting the main villain, who is this blue smurf looking guy who's named Ferdinand I, and he is the guy who makes us go through all of the levels in the game so we can then have an epic final battle with him at the end. So it's kind of difficult for me to talk about the music tracks in Super Rhythm Castle, because there isn't a main music genre that the game focuses on. You could say that there is something for everyone. You got your classic pop song with a bit of kindergarten vibes sprinkled in. This then morphs into some EDM, rock, anime, the Among Us soundtrack, Eminem, and so much more. So there will be some music that you will like, but also some that you will hate. You will also run into some puzzles in the different worlds that you will need to solve. The puzzles are very easy to solve because most of them just consist of you collecting something or someone and bringing that thing to a specific place in that world. But I still think that they are a nice addition to the different worlds, so they aren't as hollow as they may have been without the puzzles. Let's quickly talk about the characters you meet throughout the game. Some of the first include Jack and Ferdinand, but you also have the frog and the stone frog. I actually don't know what this is, so if you know, then please let me know down in the comments. These two serve as your primary sidekicks other than the Traveler, but we will talk about him in a bit. The Frog and Stone Frog are the first characters to give you a power up, which in this case is the bagpipe, which is probably the item you use the most throughout the game when you have to get rid of all of these vines scattered around the castle and levels. They also appear in almost every world to assist you in different ways. You also have quite a few interactions with these star penguins, who act as the barriers to story related items and places. The next sidekicks you meet are these meat people who reside in the meat/food dimension. These guys don't help us as much as the two frogs, but they still assist you in the final boss fight, so that's something. To talk about the last sidekick, the Traveler, I have to talk about the post-game content, because it's only really in the post-game where you get to interact with the Traveler and find out who's under the mask. So after you beat the final boss for the first time, you unlock a bunker where you have to complete a few objectives for the Traveler in order to get the good ending of the game and see who the Traveler really is, which I won't spoil, but it's interesting. In the same bunker you also have a few extra optional tasks that you can complete if you want to. So there's quite a bit of post-game content to bump up the runtime of the game. After you get the good ending of the game, you get the Traveler as a playable character. Now, a big reason I even played this game in the first place is because I could play it together with my friends online, and I am so happy that you have the ability to play online, because playing this game on your own, like most other multiplayer multiplayer games, it's just not the same. So this game having a pretty balanced multiplayer game is, in my opinion, one of the biggest reasons why I think that Super Rhythm Castle is the best rhythm game ever made. The second to last thing I want to praise this game for is the humor. Now, this is of course a topic that will be different for everyone, but I think the mix of self-awareness and fourth wall breaking moments make for some pretty funny character interactions that you can only really understand if you experience them for yourself. Now, with all of the good and bad things I've said about Super Crazy Rhythm Castle, can I recommend this game with its $44 price tag? Yes, I can. The only thing I think is a bit of a bummer with such a big price tag is the runtime of the story being on the short side, with only about 3 to 5 hours of story. But there are a lot of extra things that you can do in the post game, so I would still recommend this game, but I think the ideal way to play this game is with a friend or two. So if I've missed anything in this video, then please leave a comment about it down below. And I would also love to hear about your guys' experience with this game. Remember to leave a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And until we meet again, bye bye.